He banished me from the pack, but every full moon his wolf comes looking for me. The moon hung low in the sky, a silver disk that cast its cold light across the dense forest. Lyra's footsteps crunched softly over the fallen leaves as she moved deeper into the wilderness, her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders. Each breath she drew felt heavy, weighted with fear, regret, and the bitter sting of exile. Behind her, the pack had disappeared into the shadows, leaving only silence where laughter and loyalty had once been. It had not been long since Kale, the alpha of the pack and the man she had once admired with quiet reverence, had cast her out. His decision had been sharp and absolute, leaving no room for plea or explanation. Lyra had stumbled, misjudged, and the consequences of that moment had been swift. A pack is a law unto itself, and laws, no matter how cruel they seem, are always enforced. Yet, as she wandered through the dark trees, she could not shake the memory of his eyes. They had been stormy, full of something she could not name. Anger, yes, but something else too, something softer, hidden beneath the rigid armor of leadership. It was in that gaze that her heart had first twisted painfully, realizing she had lost not only her place among the pack, but also something far deeper, something that belonged only to her and Kale. Lyra's journey through the forest was slow. Every shadow seemed to move with intention, and every rustle of leaves set her heart hammering in her chest. She remembered the warnings of the elders. The forest does not forgive. It does not forget. She had thought they spoke of the dangers of wild animals or harsh weather, but now she realized they meant something else entirely. Magic lingered in these woods, old and sharp, like the edge of a forgotten sword. The first night of her exile, Lyra had curled beneath a thick oak, its roots twisting into the earth like the veins of the world itself. The cold seeped into her bones, and hunger gnawed at her stomach, but sleep had come reluctantly, if at all. Her dreams were filled with shifting forms and glowing eyes that watched her from the darkness. At first, she thought them to be the eyes of wolves, her own pack perhaps, come to hunt her down. But there was something different about these watchers, a strange intelligence that made her shiver. On the second night, she felt it, before she even saw it. A presence, strong and undeniable, moving through the trees with a quiet patience. Lyra froze, heart pounding. The forest seemed to hold its breath around her. Then, from the shadows, a wolf stepped forward. Its coat shimmered under the silver light of the full moon, darker than midnight, eyes glowing amber like fire trapped in glass. Lyra's instinct was to run, but something in the creature's gaze held her rooted. There was no malice in those eyes, yet there was power, and something she could not name: familiarity. She had seen that presence before, had felt it, even when she had thought Kale was only human. The wolf tilted its head, watching her with a patience that was almost human.
"You," Lyra whispered, her voice trembling.
"You belong to him, don't you?" The wolf's eyes seemed to deepen, and for a moment it was as if Kale himself were there, watching, pleading, questioning. Lyra's chest tightened, and tears pricked at the edges of her eyes. She had not realized how much she had missed him even after the pain of his exile. And yet, here he was, not entirely him, but still part of the world she had left behind. She took a cautious step forward. "I'm not your enemy," she said softly. I won't fight you." The wolf lowered its head slightly, as though acknowledging her words. It did not approach, but neither did it retreat. It simply stayed at the edge of the clearing, a sentinel of the night. Lyra felt a strange sense of relief mixed with longing. She had expected to be hunted, attacked, perhaps even forgotten. But instead she was being watched, protected perhaps, though she could not understand why. Days turned into nights, and the pattern continued. Every full moon the wolf would appear. Lyra began to notice the signs: a broken branch, a set of paw prints that were too large for any ordinary wolf, a lingering scent in the wind that carried a memory of Kale himself. Each encounter was a mixture of fear and longing. She wanted to run, to escape the weight of the feelings the wolf stirred in her. And yet she could not. During the day, Lyra explored the wilderness, learning to survive. She found small streams for water, patches of wild berries, and caves that offered shelter. She practiced moving quietly through the underbrush, listening to the whispers of the forest, and slowly she began to sense the magic in the world around her. Shadows seemed to twist and shift, not threatening but aware. The wind carried messages that only she could understand. And always, in the back of her mind, was the wolf, the silent, patient shadow that moved in rhythm with her own heartbeat. Lyra wondered about Kale. The pack had always whispered of his strength, his unyielding nature, and his curse. It was said that the Alpha line carried a burden, a connection to the wolf spirit that bound them to the moon and to the pack in ways beyond mortal understanding. Perhaps that was why he had banished her. Perhaps it was the curse speaking through him, forcing him to choose the laws of the pack over the wishes of his heart. One evening, as the full moon rose, Lyra found herself standing on a cliff overlooking a valley bathed in silver light. The wind tugged at her hair, and the forest below seemed to pulse with life. She knelt, letting her fingers brush the earth, and whispered, "Kael!" "Why?" The wolf appeared, as always, stepping silently from the shadows. This time, it came closer. Lyra's heart raced, and instinctively she reached out. The wolf paused, eyes locking with hers. She could see it then, not just the animal, but a flicker of Kale within, a soul trapped between forms. She felt the pull, the tension, the unspoken words that hung like mist between them. Lyra took a deep breath. "I don't hate you," she said. "I never did!" The wolf growled softly, a sound that was not entirely threatening. It circled her once, then padded back toward the forest. She wanted to call it back, to demand answers, but she knew the truth. This was a test, a challenge, and perhaps a bridge between them that had not yet been crossed. That night, sleep came, but it was restless. She dreamed of Kale, human and wolf entwined, standing on a cliff under a blood-red moon. He reached for her, but his hand passed through her as if she were made of mist. She woke with tears on her cheeks, a knot of longing in her chest, and the unshakable feeling that their story was far from over. Days passed, and Lyra grew stronger. She learned to track the movements of the forest, to read the signs of approaching danger, and to understand the rhythm of the wolf's visits. With each encounter, the pull between them deepened, pain, desire, guilt, and unspoken love swirling together like storm clouds. She realized that Kale's banishment was not just punishment, it was protection, perhaps for her, perhaps for the pack, perhaps for himself. Then, one evening, as the full moon rose brighter than ever, the wolf came once more. Lyra sensed the difference immediately. The air felt heavier, charged with an energy she had never felt before. The wolf's amber eyes were brighter, more intense, and Lyra could hear Kale's voice, not in words, but in emotion, raw and urgent. He wanted her to come. He wanted her to trust him. He wanted something he had not yet found the courage to name. Lyra stepped forward, heart pounding, and whispered, "I'm not afraid." The wolf stopped, watching her. For a long moment there was silence, broken only by the wind and the rustling of leaves. Then the wolf turned and ran deeper into the forest, pausing to look back, as if to say, "Follow me, if you dare." Lyra's pulse raced. She knew, without knowing how, that this was the moment of choice. The night stretched before her, dark and full of secrets. The forest held its breath, and the moon shone like a sentinel in the sky. She took a step forward, and then another. The exile had begun, but the story, her story, with Kale, the wolf, and the curse, was only just beginning, and somewhere in the shadows the Alpha watched, torn between pride, guilt, and a longing that refused to be denied. The moon rose high and full, casting its silver glow across the forest. Every leaf, every twisted branch, seemed to shimmer as though the night itself were alive. Lyra moved silently through the undergrowth, senses sharp, aware that something, or someone, was watching her. Her heart pounded, both from fear and from a strange thrill she could not name. The wolf had been appearing more often lately. Each time it came, it lingered closer, circling her like a shadow that refused to be ignored. Lyra had learned not to run, though her instincts screamed otherwise. She had begun to understand that this creature was not merely a hunter. It was a guide, a protector, and a messenger from Kale himself. She paused near a stream, the water sparkling in the moonlight. Kneeling, she cupped her hands to drink, listening to the soft rustle of leaves behind her. There it was, the familiar presence. She turned slowly, her breath catching. The wolf stood at the edge of the clearing, its amber eyes glowing, its coat like dark silk under the moonlight. Lyra's lips parted. "Kale," she whispered. The sound felt strange, almost sacred in the quiet of the night. She had not spoken his name aloud for fear, for pride, for the memory of his anger. And yet, saying it now felt like a bridge, a fragile thread connecting the two of them. The wolf tilted its head, as though listening. And then, to her astonishment, it began to move closer, padding silently over the forest floor. Lyra's heart raced. She knew that behind those glowing eyes was Kale's presence, the man trapped between the human world and the wild spirit of the wolf. She could feel him reaching toward her, his emotions pulsing in the air like electricity. "Why are you here?" she asked softly. "Why do you come?" The wolf stopped, eyes never leaving hers. Then, in a moment that made her blood run cold, she heard a whisper. Not in words, but in feeling, in thought. "Because I cannot stay away. Because I am yours, even when I must be strong, even when I must be cruel." Lyra's chest tightened. The connection was raw, intimate, and terrifying. She had felt longing before, yes, but this was deeper, more profound. It was as if the moon itself had drawn their hearts together across the distance of exile. She knelt, hands resting lightly on the forest floor. "I am not afraid of you," she said. Her voice trembled, but she meant it. "I am not afraid of what you are or what you might do." For a moment, the wolf simply watched. Then, as if answering her courage, it lowered its head, the tip of its nose brushing her fingers.
Lyra felt a shock of warmth at the contact, a thread of connection that seemed to pulse with Kale's presence.
The wolf did not bite, did not growl. It only lingered, close enough that she could feel its breath, powerful and steady. The night deepened, and Lyra rose, moving carefully through the forest with the wolf following at a respectful distance. She noticed how the trees seemed to shift, as though the forest itself were guiding her steps. The wind carried messages she could almost understand, whispers of hidden paths, warnings of danger, and secrets that only the night could hold. Lyra began to speak aloud, softly, as if the forest might answer her. "I want to understand. I want to know why this is happening. Why you cannot simply leave me be." The wolf padded closer, then stopped. This time, Lyra felt something more than Kale's presence. She felt a question, a hesitation. She realized slowly that Kale's wolf was as conflicted as Kale himself. He was torn between his duty to the pack, the curse that bound him, and the pull toward her that he could not deny. The tension between them grew, palpable, like a storm waiting to break. Lyra's heart ached with a mixture of fear and longing. She wanted to reach out, to call to him, to demand answers. And yet, she knew better. The wolf, and Kale within it, was testing her, waiting for her to prove that she was worthy of the truth. Hours passed, the forest alive with the sounds of night creatures. Lyra moved carefully, learning to sense the wolf's moods, reading the subtle shifts in its stance, the flick of its ears, the intensity of its gaze. She began to feel a strange power rising within herself, a connection to the wild, to the magic that lingered in the forest, and to Kale's presence.
By the third night, Lyra had learned to anticipate the wolf's appearances.
She found herself moving toward it, seeking the connection rather than fleeing from it. And each time she felt a new understanding bloom within her, that this bond was more than fear, more than longing. It was a bridge between two worlds, between two hearts caught in the grip of a curse neither fully understood. One night, under a particularly bright full moon, Lyra followed the wolf deeper into the forest than she had ever dared to go. The trees grew thicker, older, their trunks twisted like the bones of ancient giants. The air was heavy with magic, and Lyra felt her heart race with excitement and fear. The wolf moved with purpose, leading her to a clearing she had never seen before. In the center of the clearing stood a stone circle, ancient and worn by time. Strange symbols were etched into the stones, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Lyra stepped closer, feeling the hum of energy under her feet. She realized with a shock that this place was connected to Kale, to the curse, to the very power that had cast her out. The wolf stopped at the edge of the circle, eyes locked on hers. For the first time, Lyra felt something she had never felt before. The wolf waiting for her to act. She reached out, hand trembling, and touched one of the stones. Instantly, a wave of energy surged through her, filling her with visions of Kale, human, wolf, burdened, conflicted, yearning for something he could not name. She staggered back, breathless. "I," she whispered, but words failed her. The connection was too strong, too overwhelming. It was not just Kale she felt. It was the curse, the pack, the history of their lineage, and the weight of love that had been forbidden from the start. The wolf moved closer, brushing her shoulder with its warm, dark coat. Lyra felt a surge of emotion so intense it brought tears to her eyes. She realized that Kale's presence was not just watching her. He was reaching for her, calling to her, testing her courage, her heart, and her loyalty. "Kale!" she whispered, voice breaking. I don't know what to do!" And then, as if in answer, the wolf transformed before her eyes, fur receded, limbs reshaped, and within moments Kale stood there, human, powerful, and trembling with emotion. His eyes were the same amber as the wolf's, glowing with a mixture of guilt, longing, and an unspoken plea. "Lyra," he said, his voice hoarse. "You shouldn't be here. This place—"
It's dangerous. He stopped, swallowing hard, eyes flicking away.
"I didn't mean to cast you out, but I had no choice." Lyra stepped closer, heart racing. "No choice?" she repeated. "You could have chosen me, Kale. But you didn't. You let the pack come first, as if my heart didn't matter." Kale looked at her, pain etched in every line of his face. "It does matter," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "More than anything. But there are things you do not understand, things I cannot explain yet. The curse, it demands sacrifice, loyalty, and control. If I let you stay, it would destroy everything, including you." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes, but she held her ground. "I can't handle it." "I can survive. I want to understand. I want to help you." Kale took a step closer, the air between them charged with the weight of unspoken emotions. "You must be careful," he warned. "The forest is not just a home to wolves and magic. It tests us, tempts us, breaks us. If you are not ready, it will consume you." Lyra's hand reached out, brushing against his. The touch was electric, a bridge across the space that had separated them for so long. Kale flinched, but did not pull away. For a long moment they simply stood there, human and wolf-bound, heartbeats echoing in the silence of the forest. Then, a sound shattered the stillness, a howl, distant but full of warning. Lyra's heart leapt. The wolf pack, alerted by the moon, was moving closer. Kale's eyes darkened. "We don't have much time," he said urgently. "The pack! They will not understand. You must leave. Tonight." Lyra shook her head, fear mingling with determination. "I won't run from this anymore," she said firmly. "I'm not afraid. Not of you. Not of them. Not of the forest." Kale's gaze softened, full of a storm of emotions she could barely name. "Then you are braver than I am," he said, voice low. "And perhaps that is what will save us both." The full moon hung above, casting its silver light on the two of them. The forest waited, silent and watching. And in that moment, Lyra realized that the bond between her and Kale, human and wolf, exile and alpha, was growing stronger, unbreakable, and dangerous in its intensity. The wolf pack would arrive soon, drawn by the scent of the alpha. Lyra and Kale had no choice but to face them together. And somewhere in the shadows, an ancient magic stirred, sensing the courage, longing, and unspoken love that flowed between them. Lyra took a deep breath, steadying herself. Whatever happens, she whispered, I'll stay by your side. Kale nodded, eyes locked on hers.
And I will not let you fall. Not now. Not ever.
The howl came again, louder, closer, and the forest seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment when their courage, hearts, and the moonlit magic of the night would be tested. Lyra stepped forward, hand in Kale's, ready to face whatever the forest, the pack, and destiny had in store. The hunt was only beginning. The forest had grown colder as they moved deeper into the shadowed land. The trees were taller here, their twisted branches forming shapes that seemed almost human in the pale light of the moon. Lyra followed Kale cautiously, the forest floor soft with fallen leaves and the scent of moss and magic thick in the air. "This way," Kale whispered, his voice low but steady, guiding her between roots and rocks. His hand brushed hers, a fleeting touch that made her heart tighten. It was a small comfort, a reminder that he was there, that he had chosen to protect her despite the danger that waited ahead.
Lyra nodded, gripping the strap of her satchel tightly.
"I trust you," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. Trust was not easy after exile, after nights of fear and longing. But the way Kale moved, strong, sure, and yet haunted, made her believe that he would not let her fall. The wolf that had once stalked her now trailed behind silently, a shadow in the darkness, alert and watchful. Kale had transformed back into his human form for most of the journey, but the wolf remained, a reminder of the curse that bound him. Every so often, Lyra could see the faint shimmer of fur along his back, a reminder that the wolf and Kale were one and the same. They came at last to a clearing unlike any other. The air was thick with magic, so dense that it made their skin tingle and their breath short. In the center of the clearing rose an ancient citadel, its stones blackened with age and engraved with symbols that glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Lyra stepped forward, awe and fear mixing in her chest. "What is this place?" she whispered. Kale's jaw tightened. "The origin of the curse," he said.
The place where it all began. The Queen.
She was betrayed once, long ago, and her anger created this spell. It binds my line to the wolves and to the full moon. It punishes any alpha who shows weakness, any heart that dares to love freely. Lyra's fingers brushed the cold stone of the citadel. She felt the power thrumming beneath her touch, and a shiver ran down her spine. The energy here was raw, wild, and dangerous, but it also felt familiar, as if the forest itself had been whispering to her, preparing her for this moment. "We have to break it," Lyra said, determination strengthening her voice. "We can't live like this, separated, hunted, afraid." Kale shook his head slowly. "It is not that simple. The curse does not forgive. It tests everything: loyalty, courage, heart. If we fail, it will destroy us." His eyes softened, flicking toward her with a tenderness he rarely showed.
Lyra, there is more at risk than just me.
"Your life, the pack, even the forest itself." Lyra met his gaze unflinching. "Then we will not fail," she said firmly, her hands clenched at her sides. "I will do whatever it takes." Kale studied her for a long moment. He could see the fire in her eyes, the courage that matched the strength of the wolves themselves. Slowly he nodded. "Very well. But you must stay close to me. One wrong step, and this place will test you in ways you cannot imagine." Together! They stepped into the citadel. The air inside was heavy, filled with the scent of old stone and a faint, bitter magic. The shadows danced across the walls, forming shapes of people, wolves, and strange creatures that flickered like ghosts. Lyra's pulse raced, but she kept her eyes forward, trusting Kale's guidance. As they moved deeper into the citadel, the curse began to test them. Shadows reached for them, not physically, but with a force that pressed against their minds. Memories surfaced. Kale's mistakes, Lyra's exile, the pain they had caused each other and themselves. The walls seemed to echo their fears, magnifying every doubt, every longing, every unspoken word. Lyra felt herself faltering. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath.
We can do this, she whispered to herself. We can survive this together.
Kale reached for her hand, and their fingers intertwined. The touch was grounding, anchoring them against the flood of emotion and magic.
I've waited for you,
he admitted quietly.
Even when I was forced to turn away, my heart, it never stopped searching for you.
Lyra's chest tightened. She could feel his pain, his longing, his guilt, all of it, raw and unshielded.
I've felt the same, she admitted.
Every night in the forest, every time the moon rose, I felt you.
In the wolf, in the shadows, always.
Their confession was cut short as the ground beneath them trembled. The shadows on the walls thickened, forming a swirling vortex of dark energy. The shapes emerged, creatures born of magic and anger, echoes of the Queen's wrath. Their eyes glowed with a light that pierced through the darkness, and their forms shifted between human and wolf, reflecting the duality of Kale's curse. Kale stepped in front of Lyra, his posture protective. "Stay behind me," he warned.
The curse tests not just strength, but heart. You must resist fear, Lyra, or it will control you.
Lyra nodded, gripping the edge of his cloak. She could feel the pull of the shadows, their whispers trying to turn her doubts into fear. But she thought of the wolf that had followed her, of Kale's voice reaching her through the moonlight, of the bond that had grown between them. She would not falter. Together they moved through the citadel, the shadows swirling around them like a storm. Kale's hands glowed faintly with energy, a mixture of his human strength and the power of the wolf. Lyra felt a spark of her own magic awakening, the connection between them amplifying her courage. She reached out, letting her energy flow alongside his, and together they pushed against the darkness. For a moment it seemed as though the shadows would overwhelm them. Lyra stumbled, her chest burning with effort, but Kale caught her. His eyes met hers, filled with trust and unspoken love.
We can do this, he said. Together!
Lyra nodded, drawing strength from his words.
They pressed forward, each step a battle, each heartbeat a testament to their will. The shadows hissed and swirled, but the bond between them shone brighter than the curse's darkness.
Finally, they reached the heart of the citadel, a circular chamber with a pedestal in the center. On it lay an ancient relic, glowing with a pale silver light. The symbols etched into the stone walls pulsed in rhythm with their hearts.
"This is it," Kale said, voice low.
"The source of the curse. If we can confront it, perhaps we can break it.
But be warned, it will force us to face our deepest fears, our darkest secrets."
Lyra swallowed hard.
I'm ready, she said. For you. For us. For everything this curse has taken.
Kale nodded, placing his hand on hers. The silver light of the relic spread into their palms, filling them with warmth and a strange energy that made their hearts beat as one. Images flooded their minds, memories of the past, mistakes, betrayals, moments of weakness, and moments of love. The relic demanded honesty, demanded courage, demanded that they lay bare their hearts. Lyra felt herself tremble, but she focused on Kale, on the bond that had grown stronger than fear, stronger than pain.
"I forgive you,"
she whispered, tears slipping down her cheeks. "And I forgive myself." Kale's breath hitched.
Lyra!
He stopped, struggling with the weight of his own guilt.
Then, slowly he said, I forgive you too.
And I forgive myself for casting you out.
For letting fear rule me instead of heart. The relic's light flared brighter and brighter until it seemed the chamber would be consumed. But instead of pain, there was release. The shadows dissolved, the swirling darkness vanished, and the oppressive weight of the curse lifted, leaving only silence and the soft hum of magic in the air. Lyra sank to her knees, exhausted but free. Kale knelt beside her, his hands holding hers, their foreheads touching.
We did it, he whispered. The curse. It's broken. At least, partly.
But the bond between the wolf and me, it will remain. And the forest, it will test us again, I am sure.
But we are stronger now.
Lyra smiled through tears.
Together, she said. We are stronger together. For a long moment they simply held each other, hearts beating in rhythm, feeling the weight of the past and the hope of the future. The forest around them seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, the trees no longer threatening, but alive with quiet approval. And then, as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Lyra felt a presence behind them, a figure cloaked in shadows, watching.
The warning was clear. While the curse had been weakened, the forces that had created it were not gone. Their trials were far from over.
Lyra's hand tightened on Cale's.
"Whatever comes next," she said, voice steady, "we face it together."
Cale nodded, amber eyes glowing softly.
"Together," he agreed, and in that promise they found the courage to face the unknown, hearts bound by love, trust, and the trials of the moonlit curse.
The forest was quiet, almost too quiet. Dawn had passed, and yet the moon still lingered high in the sky, a pale guardian casting silver light on the world below. Lyra and Cale moved cautiously through the trees, the aftermath of the Citadel's curse still heavy in the air. Though the spell had been weakened, its influence lingered, a reminder that their trials were far from over.
Cale's hand brushed against hers as they walked, the touch grounding both of them.
"The pack will know something has changed," he said quietly. "They will come," Lyra nodded. "Then we must be ready. We cannot let fear rule us again."
The forest around them seemed to shift, trees bending slightly as if acknowledging their determination. Even the wolf that had once stalked Lyra now moved calmly beside them, loyal, patient, a silent witness to the bond that had grown between human and alpha. As they approached a clearing, the sound of movement reached their ears. The wolf pack was coming, drawn by the scent of Cale, the energy of the weakened curse, and the bond that now radiated between them. The pack circled the edge of the clearing, eyes glowing in the moonlight, muscles tense, ready to attack or protect. Cale stepped forward, placing himself between Lyra and the wolves.
"Stay close to me," he said. His voice carried authority, calm yet firm. "I will not allow them to harm you."
Lyra nodded, heart racing. She felt the same mixture of fear and thrill she had felt the first night the wolf had appeared. But now it was different. She was no longer the exile, no longer powerless. She had survived, learned, and grown. And she was not alone. The lead wolf, massive and silver-furred, stepped forward. Its eyes locked on Cale, and for a moment the clearing was silent. Then, as if acknowledging the change, the wolf lowered its head slightly, a gesture of respect. The other wolves followed, circling Cale in quiet obedience. Lyra let out a breath she had not realized she was holding.
"They recognize you," she whispered. "They know you've changed."
Cale's amber eyes softened as he looked at her.
"And you?" he said quietly. "They will see what you are too. Strong, brave, connected to the forest in ways I could never have imagined."
Lyra felt a surge of warmth at his words.
She had feared for so long that she would never belong, that exile had marked her forever. But now, standing in the moonlit clearing with Cale by her side, she understood that belonging was not given, it was earned, shaped by courage, trust, and love. The wolves shifted as a distant howl echoed through the forest. The sound was not a threat, but a warning. Something was approaching, something older and darker than even the weakened curse. Lyra's stomach tightened with anticipation, but she stood firm, drawing strength from Cale's presence.
"Whatever comes," she said, voice steady, "we face it together."
Cale nodded, his hand finding hers once more.
"Together,"
he agreed. From the shadows emerged a figure, cloaked in darkness, radiating a power older than the forest itself. Lyra could feel the energy pressing against her, testing her courage, her heart, and the bond between her and Cale. The figure's eyes glowed faintly, an unsettling mix of curiosity and judgment.
"You have grown strong," the figure said, voice echoing like a whisper through the trees. "Stronger than I anticipated."
But the test is not yet complete. Only one truth remains. Can you face the darkness without losing yourselves or each other? Cale stepped forward, placing himself in front of Lyra.
We will not falter, he said firmly. We have faced the curse, the forest, and our own fears. Together we are stronger than any shadow. The figure raised a hand, and the forest seemed to respond. Descendant searches at pain. Trees twisted, shadows lengthened, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Lyra felt a cold wave of fear wash over her, but she did not step back. She gripped Kale's hand tightly, drawing courage from the connection between them. You must trust me, Kale whispered. Trust us. Trust our bond.
Lyra nodded. I do, she said, her voice unwavering.
The shadows surged, forming a swirling vortex around them. The forest itself seemed to twist and turn, testing their balance, their courage, and their hearts. Lyra felt the power pressing against her, threatening to pull her into despair. She focused on Kale, on the warmth of his hand in hers, and on the bond that had carried them through exile, fear, and the curse. Lyra, Kale said, his voice cutting through the storm. Feel my heart. Our hearts. Together we are unbreakable. Lyra closed her eyes, letting the fear fade. She focused on the bond, the connection that had grown between them. Slowly, the shadows began to recede, dissolving in the strength of their trust, their courage, and their love. The forest calmed, the wind stilled, and the moon shone brighter, bathing the clearing in silver light. The figure in the shadows bowed its head slightly, acknowledging their victory. You have proven yourselves, it said. The darkness may return, but the bond you share is now beyond my reach. It is yours to protect, yours to honor. Kale exhaled, his shoulders relaxing. He turned to Lyra, eyes filled with a mixture of relief, pride, and longing. We did it, he said softly. The curse, the darkness, it cannot touch us now. Not if we remain together. Lyra smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. Together, she echoed. The wolf that had once stalked Lyra stepped forward from the shadows, transforming once more into its human form. Kale's transformation was fluid, seamless, and for the first time he stood fully as both alpha and man, free from the full weight of the curse. The pack around them shifted, sensing the change, and howled in unity, a chorus that filled the forest with strength and life. Lyra stepped closer to Kale, brushing a strand of hair from his face. I never want to be apart from you again, she whispered. Kale's amber eyes softened and he cupped her face in his hands. Nor I from you, he said. You have changed everything. You have shown me courage, trust, and love that I did not think possible. You have saved me, saved us. The forest seemed to hum in agreement, the energy of the moonlight, the pack, and the ancient magic blending into a moment of peace and redemption. Lyra felt the weight of exile, fear, and longing lift from her shoulders, replaced by a warmth that spread through her chest. She was home, not just in the forest, but with Kale, with the bond they had forged and with the life they would face together. As the first light of dawn touched the horizon, Kale and Lyra stood in the clearing, hand in hand. The wolves of the pack gathered around them, loyal and calm, a reminder that even the wildest hearts could be tamed with trust and love. Kale turned to Lyra, his eyes glowing softly in the fading moonlight. The forest will always test us, he said, but we have faced it. We have faced ourselves, and we have faced each other. No curse, no shadow, no fear can ever break what we share. Lyra smiled, leaning into him.
Then let us face everything together, she said. The forest, the moon, the pack, and the world beyond. Whatever comes, we will be stronger for it. Kale nodded, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. Whatever comes, he agreed. The forest around them seemed to sigh in contentment, the tension dissolving into a peaceful harmony. The wolf pack settled, their eyes still watchful but no longer threatening, and the air felt lighter, freer, as if the very world had acknowledged the bond that now united Lyra and Kale. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, Lyra allowed herself to relax completely. The exile was over. The curse had been confronted and weakened, and though the forest would always hold challenges, she knew she and Kale would face them as one, unbroken and unafraid.
As the sun's first rays touched the treetops, Lyra looked up at the sky, feeling the warmth of hope and the power of redemption. She glanced at Cale, who stood beside her, strong and free, yet still carrying the quiet weight of his responsibilities. "We've come so far," she said softly. Cale's hand found hers again, squeezing gently.
"And we have further to go," he replied. "But whatever lies ahead, we face it together." Lyra smiled, a deep, contented smile that reached her eyes. "Together!" she whispered. The moon still lingered, silver and steady, a witness to their journey.
The forest was alive with quiet magic, the wolves at peace, and the bond between Lyra and Cale stronger than ever. In the heart of the wild, under the watchful eye of the moon, they had found redemption, trust, and love. And as they turned to walk into the deeper forest, hand in hand, Lyra knew one thing with certainty: no curse, no exile, no darkness could ever separate them again. The forest, the moon, the pack, and their hearts had chosen them for each other,